That toy you bought because the box said stimulates brain development, it might be doing the exact opposite. Here's what nobody tells you at the baby shower. The infant brain is not a sponge waiting to be filled. It's a precision instrument that can be overloaded. And some of the most popular, best-selling, highest-rated baby toys on the market are doing exactly that, overloading a nervous system that isn't built to handle them yet. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to go through 7 of the most common ones, and I promise you, at least one of them is sitting in your home right now. Before we get to the toys, you need to understand something foundational, because without this, the rest of the video is just a list. With it, you'll never look at your baby's toy basket the same way again. A newborn arrives with roughly 100 billion neurons, the same number an adult has. But here's the critical difference. Those neurons are barely connected. The synaptic architecture, the wiring that lets different parts of the brain talk to each other, is almost entirely unbuilt at birth. What happens in the first 12 months of life is an extraordinary construction project. Trillions of synaptic connections form, get tested, and either get reinforced or pruned away based on one thing: experience. This is what neuroscientists call experience-dependent development. The brain literally wires itself according to what it encounters in the world. And that sounds wonderful. It sounds like more experiences would mean more wiring, more development, more intelligence. That's exactly what the toy industry wants you to believe. But the infant brain doesn't work like a computer you can upgrade by throwing more data at it. It works more like a garden. You can't make a seedling grow faster by flooding it with water. You can drown it. The developing nervous system has a threshold, a window of input it can process productively. Cross that threshold, and the system doesn't accelerate. It shuts down. Babies get glassy-eyed. They turn their heads away, they cry, they fall asleep mid-play. These aren't random behaviors. They're neurological circuit breakers. The technical term is sensory overload, and developmental pediatricians have documented it for decades. What's changed is that the toy market has never been more aggressively engineered to push right up against, and often past, that threshold. Every flashing light, every electronic jingle, every spinning mirror is designed by adults, tested by adults, and evaluated by adults who are not running a 4-month-old nervous system. So what does a baby actually need? Turns out, far less than we're selling them, and far more of something that costs nothing at all. We'll come back to that. But first, let's talk about the toys. Activity gyms are everywhere. They're on every baby registry. They're gifted at every shower. And in their most basic form, a simple arch with a few hanging objects, they're genuinely useful. The problem is what they've evolved into. The modern light-up musical activity gym is a different animal entirely. We're talking about units that play multiple simultaneous melodies, flash LEDs in rapid alternating patterns, incorporate spinning mirrors, crinkle textures, teething rings, and motion sensors, all within the visual field of an infant who is lying flat on their back, with nowhere to look but up. Here's what's happening neurologically in that moment. The infant visual system at 2 to 4 months is still calibrating. Newborns can only focus clearly at roughly 8 to 12 inches. By 3 months, that range is expanding, but the brain is still learning to track, to distinguish foreground from background, to process color contrast. When you place a strobing, spinning, multicolored object 12 inches above their face, you're not giving their visual cortex a workout. You're giving it a traffic jam. Experienced pediatric occupational therapists will tell you that the babies who struggle most with sleep and self-regulation are often the ones with the most stimulating environments. That's not coincidence. A nervous system that's been running at high alert all day doesn't know how to downshift at night. The fix here isn't to throw the gym away. It's to use it differently. 1 or 2 objects hanging at a time, not 6. No lights, no music for the first 4 months. Let the baby track a simple black and white pattern or a single bright object. That kind of focused, single-channel input is exactly what the developing visual cortex is asking for. Simplicity isn't deprivation. In the first months of life, simplicity is the stimulus. If you've been using a full-feature gym and your baby seems fussy or checked out during play, drop a comment below. I want to know how many of you are seeing this. Type gym in the comments if this one hit home. Bouncers and swings serve a real purpose. The rhythmic motion activates the vestibular system, the inner ear balance network, and genuinely soothes a distressed nervous system. This is real, documented physiology. The problem isn't the bouncing. The problem is what manufacturers bolted onto the bouncing. The modern electronic bouncer has become a full entertainment console. Touch-sensitive light panels, recorded nature sounds layered over synthesized lullabies, vibration settings, rotating toy bars, and increasingly, learning mode settings that cycle through colors, numbers, and animal sounds in time sequences, all designed to run continuously while the baby sits. Here's the issue. When a baby is in a bouncer, they're already processing vestibular input. The motion itself is neurological work. Layering simultaneous auditory and visual stimulation on top of that asks the brain to integrate 3 separate sensory channels at once. For an adult, that's trivial. For a 4-month-old whose sensory integration pathways are still being constructed, it's like trying to build a highway while traffic is already running on it at full speed. What you often see, and what parents frequently misread, is a baby who goes very still and quiet in a stimulating bouncer. Parents interpret this as contentment. Developmental specialists often read it differently. It can be a shutdown response. The baby has hit their processing ceiling and disengaged. They're not relaxed. They're overloaded. The vestibular benefits of a bouncer or swing are real and worth keeping. The solution is simple. Turn off the lights and sounds. Use it for motion. Let the rocking do its job without competing noise. Your baby will still be soothed, and their nervous system will be doing 1 job instead of 3. I know. You already know this one is coming, and you might be tempted to skip ahead because you've heard the screen time conversation before. Don't. Because what most people talk about with babies and screens gets it only half right. And the half they miss is the part that actually matters. The standard conversation is about time. How many minutes per day? The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends avoiding screen media for children under 18 to 24 months outside of video chatting. But the deeper issue isn't duration. It's the nature of the input itself. Baby apps are specifically engineered to be maximally attention-capturing. Rapid scene changes, sometimes every 1 to 2 seconds, high-contrast colors, unexpected sounds, characters that react instantly to touch. Every one of these features is designed to exploit the orienting reflex, the automatic "what was that?" response hardwired into all mammalian nervous systems. The orienting reflex is useful. It's how babies notice and track new objects in their environment, which is how they learn. But it was designed for a world where novel stimuli appear maybe a few times per minute. A baby app can trigger it dozens of times per minute. The result is a nervous system locked in a state of constant reactive alertness. Not learning, not exploring, just reacting. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. What screens cost babies isn't just the screen time itself. It's what gets displaced. Every minute a baby spends in front of a screen is a minute they're not making eye contact, not tracking a human face, not reaching for a real object, not babbling and getting a response. Those displaced interactions are the actual curriculum of infancy. They're irreplaceable. A screen can flash and beep. It cannot respond to your baby's specific sound at the specific moment they make it. And that contingent response, that back and forth, is what actually builds language, social cognition, and emotional regulation. If you know a parent who has a tablet propped in front of their baby right now, thinking it's helping, send them this video. This is the kind of thing I wish someone had said out loud sooner. Every parent knows this toy. It's the one that plays 17 different songs, each at a volume that was clearly calibrated in a soundproofed adult testing room with no consideration for infant auditory sensitivity. It's the one grandparents love to give. It's the one that lives under the couch because nobody can find the volume switch. Musical toys aren't inherently problematic. Music is genuinely beneficial for infant development, rhythm, pattern, the rise and fall of melody. What's problematic is the specific acoustic profile of most commercial infant musical toys. Loud, rapid, electronically synthesized, and designed to cycle through sounds in quick, unpredictable bursts to maintain novelty. Here's what's relevant developmentally. The infant auditory system is exquisitely sensitive, more so than adults. The tiny hair cells of the cochlea are still calibrating their response thresholds. The auditory cortex is in the early stages of mapping sound categories, learning to distinguish phonemes, tones, rhythmic patterns. This is precision work. It requires signal clarity. Loud, synthetic, rapid-fire sound is the opposite of signal clarity. It's noise. And there's a meaningful difference neurologically between music and noise, not in the sense of taste or preference, but in terms of what the auditory cortex can extract and use. Patterned, melodic, human-voiced sound gives the auditory system something to organize around. Rapid electronic bursts give it nothing to hold on to. The brain's response to unpredictable noise is the same as its response to threat. Heightened arousal, cortisol release, and eventually behavioral shutdown. What actually works? Singing, your voice. Off-key, imperfect, quiet, repetitive. Experienced early childhood educators have known for generations that a parent's singing voice, even a terrible one, is more developmentally potent than any electronic toy. The melody is familiar. The face matches the sound. The pauses invite response. It's a conversation, not a broadcast. Be honest with yourself right now. How often does your baby hear your singing voice versus a toy's speakers? Drop a 1 in the comments if you sing to your baby regularly, and a 2 if you've mostly outsourced it to the toy. No judgment. This is just good data. This one is more nuanced, and I want to be careful here, because black and white high contrast images are genuinely supported by developmental science as appropriate early visual stimulation. The infant visual cortex responds strongly to contrast, and simple geometric patterns are a legitimate tool for the first 2 to 3 months. The problem isn't the cards. The problem is how they're being used and what's been built around them. In the last several years, neurostimulation has become a marketing category. You can now buy black and white flashcard sets that come with instructions to cycle through them rapidly, sometimes a new card every few seconds, as a kind of visual training program. Some versions have been turned into apps and videos, cycling through dozens of high-contrast images in quick succession. The marketing language is extraordinary. Activate neural pathways, accelerate visual development, maximize brain potential. Here's what the science actually says. The infant visual cortex benefits from contrast because it helps calibrate the system's basic detection abilities, edges, movement, boundaries. But this calibration happens through sustained engagement with a single stimulus, not rapid cycling through dozens of them. When you flash a new high-contrast image every 2 seconds, you're not giving the visual cortex time to process what it just saw. You're triggering the orienting reflex over and over, the same mechanism we talked about with screens. The correct use of high-contrast cards is slow, patient, and conversational. Hold one card. Let the baby look. Watch their eyes track it. Move it slowly. When their gaze drifts, the session is over. That might be 90 seconds. That's fine. That's enough. The goal is not to expose them to as many images as possible. The goal is to give their visual system a single, clear, manageable signal to work with. More is not more. In infant neurodevelopment, more is often just noise. The Montessori aesthetic has taken over parenting social media, and there's a lot that's genuinely good about it. Child-led exploration, natural materials, unstructured play. These are developmentally sound principles with deep roots in early childhood education. But something has happened in the translation from principle to product. The Montessori-inspired sensory tray, as it appears on Instagram, is often the opposite of what Maria Montessori actually advocated. Montessori's original classrooms were famous for their order and restraint. One activity on the shelf at a time, materials used for a single clear purpose, the environment carefully curated to reduce visual noise. What we're actually building when we overstuff a sensory bin is a choice overload problem. Developmental psychology has documented the choice overload effect extensively in adults. Too many options leads to paralysis, anxiety, and less satisfaction with whatever is chosen. Infants and toddlers are dramatically more susceptible to this effect. A tray with 12 different textures and colors doesn't invite exploration. It invites overwhelm. What you typically see in practice, a baby or young toddler approaches an overstuffed tray, grabs one thing, mouths it briefly, drops it, grabs another, gets frustrated, and within 3 minutes is crying or has walked away. Parents often interpret this as not interested in sensory play. What's more likely is that the environment didn't give the child anywhere to land. The research on play quality, not just play quantity, consistently shows that children engage longer, more creatively, and with more apparent satisfaction when they have fewer, simpler objects. One bowl of dry rice, one wooden spoon, one small cup, That's a sensory experience. That's an invitation to discover. 12 competing textures in a rainbow bin is a visual cocktail party, and nobody's having a real conversation. This last one is the most counterintuitive, because this isn't really about the baby's stimulation at all. It's about yours, and it matters more than any toy on this list. The new generation of smart baby monitors, the ones that track breathing, movement, oxygen levels, sleep cycles, room temperature, and sound levels in real time, are extraordinary pieces of technology. They're also, for many parents, a direct pipeline to chronic anxiety. And chronic parental anxiety has a measurable effect on infant development that often gets overlooked entirely. Here's the mechanism. Infants are extraordinarily sensitive to the emotional state of their caregivers. This isn't metaphor, it's documented biology. The field of interpersonal neurobiology has established that infant nervous systems co-regulate with caregiver nervous systems through a process called physiological synchrony. When a parent is calm, their baby's heart rate, cortisol levels, and behavioral state tend to follow. When a parent is chronically anxious, checking a monitor every 4 minutes, interpreting every data blip as a potential emergency, that anxiety is transmitted through subtle changes in voice tone, touch pressure, eye contact quality, and response latency. The smart monitor doesn't overstimulate your baby directly. It overstimulates you. And an overstimulated parent, one who is running on fragmented sleep and data anxiety, is less able to provide the calm, responsive contingent caregiving that infant brains actually need. There's also a subtler issue. Some of these devices are designed to play white noise, heartbeat sounds, or lullabies that respond automatically to the baby's sounds, essentially removing the parent from the loop. The baby stirs, the device responds. The parent doesn't need to. On a night when you're exhausted, that sounds like mercy. As a consistent pattern, it means the baby's bids for connection, those nighttime sounds that are often early attempts at communication, are being answered by a machine instead of a person. The machine can soothe, it cannot connect. This is not an argument against baby monitors. Basic audio-visual monitoring is genuinely useful. It's an argument against letting the data layer of a smart monitor become another source of overstimulation in a household that's already running hot. If you check your monitor more than once every 15 minutes during the night, ask yourself honestly, is this making you a more present parent or a more anxious one? The best thing a baby monitor can do is give you enough confidence to sleep. If it's doing the opposite, the problem isn't your baby's nervous system. It's the tool you chose to watch over it. If you've made it this far and you're mentally scanning your baby's toy basket, good. That means this is landing. And look, none of this is about guilt. Every single toy on this list was bought with love, with the best intentions, by parents who were told more stimulation equals more development. The toy industry spent decades building that belief. We're just looking at what the science actually says. If this is shifting something for you, take 1 second and leave a like. It tells us that this kind of evidence-based, no-panic parenting content is worth making more of. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the kind of conversation we have every week. Real developmental science, real parenting, no fear-mongering, no product pushing. Because what I'm about to share next, what the research says babies actually need instead, is the part that changes everything, and it costs nothing. Here's the thing nobody puts on a gift registry. The most powerful developmental tool available to your infant, the one that builds language, emotional regulation, social cognition, executive function, and stress resilience, is you. Not a smarter version of you, not a more stimulating version of you, just you, being present, being responsive, being consistent. The developmental science here is unambiguous. What infant brains need most in the first year of life is what researchers call serve and return interaction. The baby makes a sound, a gesture, a facial expression, a serve. The caregiver notices and responds, a return. That cycle, repeated thousands of times per day across the first year, is the primary driver of healthy neural architecture. It builds the prefrontal circuits that will later govern impulse control, empathy, and decision-making. It builds the language networks that no flashcard can touch. It builds the internal working model of relationships that will shape how this child connects with other people for the rest of their life. The irony is that the toy industry has convinced us that this kind of interaction isn't enough, that a baby staring at your face is missing out, that a baby who doesn't have a light-up gym is understimulated. The data says otherwise, consistently, across cultures, across income levels, across decades of longitudinal research. Boredom, by the way, is not the enemy. Pediatric psychologists have been arguing for years that brief periods of low stimulation, moments where a baby has nothing particular happening, are when some of the most important neural consolidation occurs. The brain needs quiet to process what it just experienced. It needs pauses to integrate. A baby who is never bored is a baby whose brain never gets to do its filing. What does this look like practically? It looks like a few minutes of tummy time on a plain blanket with you nearby, narrating what you see. It looks like a walk outside where the baby watches leaves move in the wind. It looks like you making a silly face and waiting, actually waiting, to see what they do with it. It looks like singing the same song for the 400th time, because repetition and predictability are how infant brains build pattern recognition. None of this is glamorous. None of it photographs well for Instagram, but it is, without question, what the research points to when you ask, what actually builds a healthy infant brain? The answer has always been simpler than what we're selling each other, and more available and more free. If you've stayed with this for the whole video, you're clearly the kind of parent who takes this seriously, and that matters more than any toy you buy or don't buy. The fact that you're asking these questions, that you're willing to reconsider something you already bought. That's the kind of reflective parenting that developmental science consistently links to better outcomes for children. Subscribe if you want more of this. We break down infant and child development every week, not to scare you, not to sell you something, but to give you the actual science so you can make your own calls. And share this with someone who's currently building a baby registry or who just had a shower. This is the kind of thing that doesn't make it onto the gift list, but probably should. Those toys weren't bought wrong. They were bought with love, using the only information most parents had. Now you have better information. A calmer environment isn't a poorer one. For an infant brain, it might be the richest thing you can give. Thanks for watching. The end screen has more videos in the same world. Pick whichever video on the end screen calls to you. There's more here for curious parents.